growing plants. Here at the land, we grow all of our plants hydroponically. So what that means is the water is doing all of the work delivering the nutrients to these plants. Normally when you plant plants in the soil and everything like that, they take the nutrients from the soil around it. Here, it's all done through the water. Now there are 5 things that every plant needs that spells out the acronym LONGS. What does a plant need that starts with the letter L? Light. A. Air. W. Water. N. And then X.
Required by traditional growing. That saves water and increases production. The aquaponics system combines hydroponics with aquaculture. The provide a natural source of fertilizer for the plants, and the plants help keep the water clean.
Right now we have squash growing.
It's another great way to produce more while using less.
These plants are getting all the light and air they need simply by sitting exactly where they are.
Keep your hands inside of the boat. Please keep your hands inside of the boat.
They're getting all of their water and the nutrients in a nutrient solution that's being misted onto the roots inside of that trough. And they're getting their support from that metal bar that we're growing up against. So an excellent example of how we do not need to use soil to plant all of these plants. Now there are billions of people all over the world, and we need to find a way to produce enough food to feed all of them. Unfortunately, in different parts of the world, there are different
That saves water and increases production. The aquaponics system
So finding ways to effectively water our plants and use our water is something we always try to look at here at Land. A good example of that produces a lot of its own resources all on its own. Now I know I've said we weren't going to touch any of the plants. However, we do have a greenhouse pet. We call him Stanley. He is not a plant, he is a plant, but Stanley. Direct access down into the root zone. Stanley will reopen totally in about 5 to 10 minutes. And they also close their leaves every night as well to help protect themselves. So we will continue straight on down this way. It does not have to be anything crazy like what you're seeing around us. It can be something as simple as water holds all of those nutrients. It's that nutrient solution. Those plants are getting all the light and air simply from sitting exactly where they are. They're getting their support by what's up right there. You get a good stand before I do what I want to. The reason why we keep it covered is with our nutrient the way it's all set up. Our plants here at the land grow about 2 to 3 times faster than average. Algae also grows 3 times faster than average. So that is the main reason we get questions about supports, hydroponics, cucumbers. I'm explaining everything so well, or we're so overwhelmed with that information we're receiving. I'll take either. So to continue our tour, we are going to make our way into our next greenhouse. We're also going to see a lot of growing systems that are using a lot of very large-scale production greenhouses. Before I get into any of those systems, though, every once in a while you might hear a hiss and a pump sound, whether you're riding a ride or wrapping up greenhouses. That is our watering system. Right down here against the wall, there are two tanks that are kind of hidden by our tomato plants, but you're going to see them throughout most of the wall. Those two tanks hold our concentrated nutrients. There's a green sign on the wall that says nutrients and because those higher concentrations, if they were all mixed together, they would create an orange sludge. Nobody wants the orange sludge. Mixing it with water and then sending that nutrient solution out to whatever in water is going to happen. Any number. Right here next to us. Now this is a Felicity variety of cherry tomato, and they are indeterminate in their growth. What that means is these plants will continue to grow and produce fruit as long as they have the space and resources to do so for the duration of their life cycle, about a year and a half to 2 years. Believe it or not, these guys were seeded at the beginning of May. July now. A little over 2 months old, and they are already way taller than me. So this is a great example of how we use string as a form of support. When they start as young seedlings, we gently attach that string right to the base, and as they grow up, we continue to gently wrap the string around them. When these plants get closer to the top, we will let out more of the string from that spool up above, and we will move those spools over, creating a rich traction down below because it will continuously move the plants over. It also puts all the harvestable tomatoes in the same level. We don't have to worry about lugging a ladder up here to harvest tomatoes from all the way up there because they're all going to be lower as well. We do hold the world records for the most tomatoes harvested from a single plant. We're talking like 1,000 pounds. Very, very good. As we make our way
Some of our best ideas have been inspired by nature, like chemistry, vegetable food. We serve more than 14
see on the backstage, everything is well. The seedlings stay backstage for up to 2 weeks before they're brought back around, and they take the place of the one to be harvested. All those seedlings are going to fall at the top, and it's always floating in a very thin layer along the bottom to create a film-like texture. How does anyone know, does lettuce prefer cooler or warmer temperatures? Or it is never cold here in Florida. So all the water that flows through this system is chilled to about 75 degrees. This system is another excellent example of how to use our resources effectively. This is a recirculating system. So the water will flow down through these troughs, and then it comes right back up the pipes in the middle, where it's refiltered, pre-mixed with nutrients, chilled to 75 degrees, and flow back down. There's also not a bunch of water loss either, since those troughs are covered. All any water that evaporates does pose other problems that you'll see in the next few house. Some plants are a little heavy. They need more support to go up in the air. Right through the store, as we do the water right on our plants need. The biggest one in arid regions is water and nutrients. If you had X-ray vision and could see into the sand behind me, you'd see a few things. One, it is a couple feet deep in some places. 2 to 3 feet deep. It is not shallow sand. 2, there's a whole network of irrigation tubes, just like this, buried under the sand. As I walk around, you're going to see little holes in this tube. These would be aimed directly into the root zones of some of the plants. Now we have lemon trees. Has anyone heard of a 9-pound lemon? They're very cool. They do grow to be about 9 pounds. You can make 1 gallon of lemonade from a single 9-pound lemon. There's a lot of green ones on there, so we're getting close. However, if you notice those 2 trees, they're multiple feet apart. We're not going to put a tube with the holes this close together underneath those trees because then we'd be watering a bunch of empty sand and that wouldn't be a good use of those resources. So that irrigation tubing is much further apart, whereas the sorghum and the other grains and flowers over here are going to be much closer together because their root zones are much closer together. Now with our pumpkin plant here behind me, we're not going to see it back in April. If I'm doing math quickly to get to the fourth one. Now, when I've been talking about pests, these guys were seeded in 2014. You might notice on a lot of the branches there are some green and red cherries. The red ones are pretty close to harvesting, the green ones are still ripening. In each one of those cherries there are 2 coffee beans. How many beans do you think it takes to make +1,000? basic cup of coffee, not a large or an extra large, like just a very standard cup of coffee. Has anyone here heard of shade grown coffee? So much food in such a small area. Sometimes we have to find ways to create space, and that means a lot of deforestation. Plants, however, like coffee trees, can be grown in shade. They just grow a little bit slower than if they're in direct sunlight, but they yield just as much coffee over their lifespan. So instead of cutting down all the big tall trees, we can clear out the underbrush from a bunch of trees, plant the coffee trees in the shade, protected shaded area. Shade-grown coffee is also technically slightly higher in caffeine because the sun isn't pre-roasting all the berries and the beans while they're sitting on the plant. It also helps protect a lot of different species of animals, like birds, for example, because they still have all those taller trees, which is often where they live. You can find shade-grown coffee at a lot of grocery stores. It's a brand for you on the back. Shade-grown. These guys in the pumpkins are an excellent example of how you always add additional support to those plants. Now to make our way down, looks like I'm passing by some pumpkins. If you want to. What is inside of here. Not bad. Anyone want to pick another number? 13. The only way I'm ever going to learn any of these 40 spices is by constant practice. She said spiders. A bunch of bananas. Spiders and I are not friends. She did very kindly break it apart into smaller pieces for me. But I was like, now, while those last few are going around, we'll do what this one was. Someone start leading the way. And I'm going to do those.
It says it's a general. see him again, probably not. I'm gonna ask for it. Short steak.
As I call it, pies y penas dentro del barco y cuida los pequeñitos. A manera de recordatorio, no tomar fotos con flash y luz de video antes de llegar al inodero.
For your safety, remain seated with your hump and hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the boat at all times, and please watch your children. Please do not use photo flash or video lights until we reach the greenhouses. Thank you. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy living with the land. Please keep your hands behind the boat at all times.
Welcome to a voyage of discovery and awareness of the riches, diversity, and often surprising nature living with the land. Our journey begins when sudden changes are sweeping over the land. The approaching steep breeze, climate, and destruction of us to nature is a new beginning of the cycle. Beneath the surface of the land, roots trap water from the flowing mud, extracting precious nutrients and minerals. These elements, when combined with sunlight, create the diverse living systems of our planet. One of those living systems is the rainforest, home to the most amazing concentration of life on the planet. These dense and beautiful forests cover only a tiny portion of the Earth's surface, but they contain more than hazardous organic organisms. Rainforests are also extremely rich in productive living systems, providing us with oxygen, food, medicine, and other elements essential to our lives. In the desert, nature has created a very different, but no less beautiful living system. And while this arid landscape may seem lifeless, it is very much alive. The plants and animals that have learned to survive in these harsh conditions make use of what little water they can find and avoid the scorching rays of the relentless sun. The American prairie once appeared as desolate as the desert, but over time, rainwater and nutrients gradually penetrated the hard surface of this land. Even the hooves of the mighty buffalo helped create the rich soil that would one day become home to the American farm. Of all the forces at work on the land, humans have had one of the most profound effects. The need to produce food for a growing world led to the enormous use and sometimes overuse of the land. In our search for more efficient ways to grow food, we often fail to realize the impact of our methods. Today, we're learning to live with the land, discovering better ways to grow food that will assure both human and environmental well-being.
In arid regions, we're learning to produce food on desert seacoasts by developing and planting crops that thrive on salt water. In Japan, we're learning that by mixing leaves and other living materials into our soil, we can make farmland more fertile without the need for chemicals. Here at EPCOT, we're learning to reduce the need for chemical pesticides by breeding and using natural predators, like ladybugs and wasps, to control pests. In the farmlands across America, we're learning that by plowing under vegetation containing natural fertilizers, we can enrich the soil without the use of chemicals.
How will we meet tomorrow's growing needs for food production, yet still respect the needs of the land? Some of the answers are being discovered just ahead. To help us maintain these carefully controlled ecosystems, and for your safety, please remain seated in your boat at all times. Welcome to our living laboratory, where scientists from EPCOT and the U.S. Department of Agriculture are exploring innovative ways to produce bountiful harvests now and into the future. The tropics are home to the greatest diversity of plants on the planet. Many of these, like papaya, bananas, cacao, coffee, and rice, are well known around the world. These are just a few of the edible plants that have been an important source of nutrition for people living in the tropics. Many are rich in vitamins and minerals, while others are well adapted to growing in less than ideal conditions. Some, like the water lily, thrive in wet, swampy areas and waterways. All parts of this plant, even the flower petal, are edible. The starchy root of the plant has long been used to make flour for baking. One day, many of these lesser-known tropical plants may be as important as the bananas growing on both sides of the boat. More than 28 million tons of bananas are eaten annually, making it the most popular fruit in the world.
Innovations like this can play an important role in our efforts to produce bountiful harvests and still protect natural resources.
Please remain fully seated at all times. Again, please remain fully seated at all times.
While there are more than 50,000 edible plant species in the world, most of us are only familiar with the handful that make up our everyday diet. The common grains growing here, wheat, maize, sorghum, and millet, plus rice, account for nearly 2/3 of our global food consumption. Learning how to increase yields of these staples is an important goal of research around the world. These plants are definitely on their way up. Innovative growing techniques like these increase yields while more efficiently using resources like water, fertilizer, and pesticides. Another innovation at work here is our integrated pest management program. By populating our greenhouses with beneficial insects that prey on harmful pests like aphids and flies, we are significantly reducing our reliance on conventional pesticides. We're growing these crops using our nutrient film system. This technique precisely controls and recycles water and nutrients. With it, we can produce over 27,000 heads of lettuce a year in this one small area. Some of our best ideas have been inspired by nature, like these fruit and vegetable trees. By growing these ground plants vertically, we can increase yields and better control diseases. These crops taste as good as they look. In fact, we serve more than 15 tons of produce from our greenhouses in restaurants here at the land every year. The future of agriculture may include innovative ideas like this vertical growing system. Plants grown in this way use a fraction of the space required by traditional growing methods. That saves water and increases production. The aquaponics system on your left combines hydroponics with aquaculture. The fish provide a natural source of fertilizer for the plants, and the plants help keep the water clean for the fish. It's another great way to produce more while using less. In our lab, EPCOT scientists are working with the U.S. Department of Agriculture on a number of innovative projects. The goal of these efforts is to produce higher yielding and better quality plants. Greenhouses represent just a fraction of the work being done worldwide to produce bountiful harvests for our growing population. Scientists, farmers, and even backyard gardeners are doing their part to improve the quantity and quality of foods that we all rely upon. Together, we can continue to find more ways to increase food production and protect the precious natural environment. Only then will we truly be living with the land. On behalf of Walt Disney World, we hope you've enjoyed this unique journey through our living laboratory. If you'd like a closer look, then check out the behind the scenes walking tour. It's a chance for the whole family to get up close and personal with the plants and growing techniques in our laboratory. Please keep your hands and feet inside the boat and remain seated until the boat comes to a complete stop.
Spaceship Earth.
Have a great night, son. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you all had a good time. See y'all real soon. Bye, guys.